Welcome to the director and star of The Anomaly, Noel Clarke.
Hi guys, girls, hi.
So Noel, welcome. What is The Anomaly? Let's start with a nice and easy one, because this movie is a noodle baker. It's a melon twister.
Yeah.
So, how can you explain it in one or two sentences quite easily?
Well, as you saw from the the trailer explains it first and foremost. But as you saw, the Anomaly is a film about an ex-soldier who wakes up in the back of the van and is more involved than he realizes, and then has 9 minutes 47 seconds to figure out what's going on, and the film is then told in those 9-minute 47-second segments.
Okay. So when did it first hit your desk? Because you didn't write this.
No, it hit my desk about 2 years ago. A writer called Simon Lewis that I had met had written a really good script called Tiger House, which I wanted to option, which is now being made by another director called Tom Daly. And I tried to option Tiger House, and just when we were in the middle of the option, a big production company came in, swooped in and took it away. And I was really annoyed about that. And so I spoke to Simon. He said, look, I've got a whole bunch of other ideas. And he started pitching me his ideas, and they were all right. And then he said, I've got this idea called The Anomaly. And he told me the first segment. And I said, okay, I want that one. I said, I want that one. He said, well, I'm kind of only halfway. I said, no, I don't care. I like the sound of it. I want that one. in the hope that he would deliver what I liked. And he did.
So did he give you the script in 9-minute 47-second long chunks? Every now and again, just a new bit, and then a new bit.
It took him that long to write it, but in weeks though, in weeks. No, but yeah, he sent it, and I just really liked it because I really felt that it was a high concept, but something you could do. It was contained, so you could do it for a lower budget, which over here I don't get like 200 million and all sorts of nonsense things. It was probably this film probably cost less than the catering budget on some of those other big films,
Like Star Trek in the Darkness, for example.
Yeah,
maybe.
Which I also didn't write.
Indeed. So you hear this pitch. What was it about? Was it the idea of these chunks of 9-minute 47 seconds? Was it a sci-fi twist? Was it something that you could play as well?
It was more about the sci-fi twist on something that we could do out of the UK but had ambition. I always try to make films that kind of have ambition and show that you can do more than you can achieve more than people will tell you can. And for me, that was part of the appeal of this film, because it shouldn't that you saw in the trailer really should not be possible for the amount of money that we had to make the movie. But when you kind of force someone to make films at a low budget, eventually they become proficient at it, and so having to make stuff like kidulthood and adulthood at lower budgets, we learn how to make films at lower budgets. And I don't need to spend 200 million, because we can make a film that is 200 times less the cost, but not 200 times less the quality, and that's the point.
So it's interesting, after Kidulthood, which you wrote, and Adulthood, which you wrote and directed, it's been interesting that you really seem to have made a purposeful leap into commercial British filmmaking. Do you think there's enough commercial British filmmaking in this country these days, and how difficult is it to make commercial movies here?
I don't think there's enough commercial British filmmaking and it is very, very difficult to make. Moving away from those films, it was a conscious choice, not because I don't love them and not because I wouldn't necessarily do it again. It was because, having done 2 of those, it was firstly to make sure that I wasn't being stuck in a box of like he does that, and secondly to make sure that the people that the films represented weren't necessarily being represented in a way that actually wasn't fair. Like, the films were, in my opinion, positive messages within a negative environment. The first film was saying, if you behave this way, you can die, so you need to not behave this way. That's the first film. Yeah. The second film was saying, as he did at the end of the film, is you can walk away from that life. You don't have to, and at the end, Sam walks away. And so many people say, why did he walk away, bruv? He should have took him out. I'm like, no, he walked away because that's the message. You can walk away from the bad things and you can start again. But at the same time, people that didn't see the message in those films saw them as negative movies, and thus I didn't think doing a third one at the time would have been good for anyone.
Absolutely. But this is your third film as director. So you did Adulthood in 4321. It's been, what, 3-4 years now since that movie?
Yeah.
So were you looking purposefully to get back on the directing horse, so to speak?
Yeah, 100%. I was looking for something new to direct. I felt like, obviously, it had been a while. 4321 was a great experience making the film, and then a not so great experience with some of the people, and not the actors, some of the people behind the scenes that I ended up working with. And so it kind of was, I was kind of like, well, I just need to sort of recover from that. And then after doing quite a few acting jobs and writing a few things like Fast Girls and Stories 24 and various other things, and being in films like Centurion and Star Trek, I thought, actually I need to make sure that I get back in the directing chair, because that's what I love as well, and that's what I want to do. And I have like I know what the next 5 things I want to do are. Whether they will happen or not is a different story, because the industry is the industry. But of the next 5 things I want to do, there's only one that I'm in, and the other 4 I fell in love with the scripts, and I want to direct those as well.
But you are in this. You're the lead
In
role
this one, yeah.
In this one, how does Noel Clarke, the actor, get a role from Noel Clarke, the director? Do you have to audition for yourself? How do you do it?
Yeah, I'm kind of like, how's this? That was shit, but you can still do the job. I'll hire you anyway.
What's your fee?
Mainly because you sleep with me. Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, for me, this film I think is important, not just because obviously I'm playing that role, but I feel like people look at films that don't necessarily understand how they work. So there are actors who can finance projects, and there are actors who can't finance projects. That's the be all and end all of it. Now, if you're a big enough director or a good enough director, or there's a new project, you can have a film with unknown people, and it might get made, and then they become stars, etc. But essentially, a film like this, there's people that can finance it, and there's people that can't. So you have people that can finance this movie at a bigger budget, like your Idrises and your Chiwetel and David Oyelowo, but the budget was never going to be big enough for them. So immediately they're out.
Okay.
Then you have people that some people think can finance projects, but actually, because I work in producing and I know you have a bunch of actors that would love to do this movie. They would give anything to do this movie, and they would be great for it, but they can't finance any project. And if you put them in it, the budget drops really low, where it's impossible to make it, or they're not financeable. And then there's a very small category with a few people, and in my persuasion of black actors, not many, that actually can finance a project, i.e. myself, and it doesn't have to be crazy budget. And also, I fall into that category of I will do it, and I will take all the physical pain. I will work 6 days a week for 6 weeks, and then still go in and do fight rehearsals on my day off. And I won't call my agent moaning about it. I won't say, "Oh, I got bruised in the fight scene. Can I get a day off?" And so I know I'm going to do that. Yeah. And I know a director doesn't have to worry about. As a director, I don't have to worry about the actor hurting his shoulder and then be like trying to get a day off, or his agent complaining. I know I'm going to put myself through that. And so that was one of the reasons that I did it. And also for me, and I'm not a militant guy, but also for me, if I had not done this role, no black actor would have got this role. If this had been cast by someone else and it fell on the desk, it would never have gone to a black actor. And I feel like there's no mention in the script of anyone being black, white, or anything. I don't cast my films like that. But I feel like the very fact there's a movie where the lead guy is black and it's not mentioned at all, and is important, because that doesn't happen enough.
Absolutely. And so who do you play in this one? Can you talk about your character?
Yeah, I play Ryan Reeves, who is the ex-soldier that is being... I don't want to give too much away. Yeah, I play Ryan Reeves, the ex-soldier that wakes up in the situation he finds himself in, and is living his life through the 9-minute, 47-second segments.
Absolutely. I think you've just nicely set up the first clip, which is the beginning of the movie. So we'll just plunge you guys straight into it. It's quite a long clip. It's about 3 minutes long, but it really sets up the movie. So roll the clip. So where was that shot? All that, because that was not one continuous location.
No, obviously we did a bit on the not quite the South Bank, but on the bank of London, where we had the futuristic London stuff in. Yeah. And then I forget what cemetery. What cemetery was it? Where was he? I don't know where he's.
Was it Highgate? Was it?
No, I think Stoke Newington. I think Stoke Newington Cemetery, but it's a cemetery that is just like a maze with like gravestones everywhere. It's not like uniform, so it was really beautiful in a weird kind of scary way.
I
You
like the
know.
way I love the way it opens up in a fan, dark, claustrophobic, and
Yeah.
then suddenly you open out and you're in the future. What years does it take place in? Do you?
I'm
Is
not
that-
telling you the date. The date is in there. The date appears one time
Uh-huh.
in a certain spot, which I won't say. And other than that, we don't say when it is. It's not too far in the future, but it's definitely a few years. And I guess the thought was going too far would really show that it would be something we couldn't afford.
Mm.
But going to a place where cars could still be driving, but phones and stuff were just a little bit more advanced. Was possible for the money we had. So, and those cool buildings that we had in London, I thought in the amount of time they could be built, and so that's what we went with.
Yeah, the architects have clearly been busy. Boris has been granting planning permission to a few people
Yeah.
in the interim.
Yeah.
There's a there's a skyscraper. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but there's a skyscraper that actually revolves.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
your idea, was it?
It was my idea. I really sort of wanted some really cool buildings, and I love the thought of having an apartment that you can see the whole of. People go, "What's your view?" You go, "Everything," because it just rotates. And so I said, "Look, make one of these ones rotate," and they did this really beautiful one that rotates, and I love it. Every time I see that shot, I kind of get drawn to that one, just slowly spinning and thinking, how cool would it be to actually live in there?
Yeah. If you have motion sickness, maybe not so good, but
Yeah, but I
otherwise
guess
think
it
it'd
would.
be okay.
I guess it would rotate quite slowly, though. Do you know what I mean?
Unless it gets broken one day and just starts
Just
revolving
stops. Yeah. Can you imagine?
spins off into the Thames. As a director, though, is it fun to come up with stuff like that? And there's really, really cool guns in the movie. There's cool phones as well. Is it cool to micromanage all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, 100%. I love getting involved in all that stuff, and I mean, there isn't a bow tie or a sock that a character wears that I'm not involved with. I make sure that I know what everyone's wearing and have a reason for them wearing it and stuff like that. And I really love it. Directing's like having a bag of chips on a beach and seagulls just coming and like pecking and taking stuff. But at the same time, as long as you can kind of control it, it's great. So I love it. Yeah.
And the last time we spoke was at the Edinburgh Film Festival, and you talked about how you got the screenwriting, and basically went to a screenwriting to a bookstore, picked out 20 screenplays, studied them, and
Yeah.
dissected them essentially. Did you do the same as a director? Who are your influences as a director, and how do you go about finding your style?
I don't even know if I found my style yet. I wouldn't say I have. I do like Steadicam stuff. I do like long shots and trying to be clever, but I definitely don't know if I found my style. And I think that's possibly because I jump genres so much as well, that there isn't, one style that I might use for something isn't necessarily right for another, even if I have a base style. Directing, I was an actor for a long time, obviously, and so being on set a lot of the time was something that enabled me to really kind of watch and learn from directors. And then before obviously with Kidulthood, I was there every day. Like, the director had me there every day next to him because he wasn't from that world. He's a good friend of mine, but he wasn't from that world, so he kind of was like, I need you here every day with me. And so I sat with him every day and I watched and I learned, and I would suggest things and he would go, okay, great, and he would listen. He's great. Like, I love the guy. We still talk now. And then with Adulthood, the film council made you, because I'd never directed a feature, they were like, right, before you do this, and they lock this in the vault. They have this in the vault and nobody ever sees it. But a lot of the films they do, if it's a new director, before they let you do it, you have to do a test shoot. You have to actually do a test shoot, and they go, right, here's the money for one day's filming. You're going to shoot a short film or 2 scenes from your film, and at the end of the day, you're going to go to the edit. You're going to do it. You're going to do all the stuff you would do on a feature, but like in this very small scale. And you're going to write a report about how you found it, the mistakes you made, or what mistakes and it doesn't matter if you make mistakes. If you know you made the mistakes, and you can write a report, and as long as you showed initiative and that you were learning and that you understood if you made a mistake. And so I've been on a few jobs where people have failed those things, but luckily, and you cast it properly, and I cast some of the guys and I passed it. And once you pass it, that's when they go, right, we're going to make the movie, and they lock it away, and you never see it. I've never seen it since.
Yeah.
But it's there somewhere.
My God, so you rock up for your first day on Adulthood, and is there a director going through your head? Is there a particular, or do you basically just go?
What was going through my mind apart from my arse? Like, I don't know. I think back then with Adulthood, I was probably too naive, and I was young and naive, but also with the naivety there was a certain brashness that I did understand what I was doing, but I didn't understand the pressure that it entailed. So I wasn't There was no fear. Like, there was no fear at all. I was like, right, yeah, we're going to do this. We've got 6 weeks to do this. We're going to do it. There's a every film, well, most films get insurance. So a guy will come and insure your film, and they guarantee to the finances that the film will complete and that you will have money that you can actually complete the film. And they never insure director actors. They never do it, because if you insure an actor who's directing and then they get sick or something happens, not only do you lose your actor, but you lose a director. So this guy had never done it, and he came down to meet me. He says, look, I don't insure actor directors. I'm just letting you know. So let me hear what you got to say. How do you propose to do this movie, Adulthood? And I said, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And he said, that's what you got to say. I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And, you know, people have told me I can't do things, and I'm going to do it. And he said that he didn't know why he did it, but he signed off on me doing it, because he thought, well, if he doesn't do it, we've insured it anyway, we'll take over, blah, blah, blah. And he signed off on me doing it, and we did it. The same guy, last year, had to sign off the Anomaly. And he's a great guy, like, I love him to bits. And he said to me, he said, right, you know, you're the only actor-director that I bond, you know. I said, yeah, I know, I remember. And he just said, and he recounted, I remember when you said to me, I'm just going to do it. And I said, oh, I did it, didn't I? He said, yeah, and that's the only reason I'm signing this one off. and he signed it off again. So, yeah, you know, I'm glad he did. He nearly, I tell you what, though, I did get a few injuries on this that did worry me for a little bit, and he might have had to come in, but luckily we got through it.
So, as a director in this one, do you still largely operate by instinct, or do you... Because their fight sequences in here are very complex and very considered. So clearly those, you're not winging it there, but do you have a sense of, you know, is there any director that influences you when you're coming to the dialogue scenes or to other scenes?
With dialogue, I mean, I love Kevin Smith, Tarantino, you know, dialogue-wise, but I mean, it's a different type of film. It's not something that sort of warrants that kind of flashy, non-driving the story forward dialogue. And but I'm influenced by too many people to kind of... I'm almost influenced by too many to kind of take bits. Definitely the raid influenced a little bit of the fights in this, but I'm not so instinctual anymore. Particularly, I'm more instinctual if I'm not in the film or I'm in a very small role, like in 4321. With a film like this, where you're in it a lot, I prepare like unbelievably. I have like bird's eye view shot plans. On top of that, I have shot lists. On top of that, I have storyboards. On top of that, the DOP, like the main cameraman and the first assistant director, they're all familiar with everything, like 100%. Every day on set, the storyboards go up, and when we do something, we cross it off. If you have an actor that changes stuff, you adapt. If you have a location that suddenly warrants you doing something different, you adapt. But generally, the film is plotted and planned out, and so any member of crew can go up to the boards and go, "What we're doing, that is what we're doing." Wow. And so it's meticulously planned out. Yeah. And the fight scenes were the same in this movie. I wanted to do something very different that doesn't really get done a lot. I don't think it's ever been done in the UK, where you barely, if ever, cut the camera. So a lot of the fights are literally done in one shot where we don't cut, which makes them sometimes a bit messy. But to be frank, they're awesome, because you're not just going cut, 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 cut. You're actually watching these 2 people or 3 people or 4 people actually fight. So they're kind of choreographed like a dance move. And with those, the same, meticulously planned. Like the big fight in the corridor, which you guys will see when you see the movie, hopefully, is there's a fight like 3 people. The set was built around the plans of the fight. Usually you find the location and then you go, okay, great, how are we going to make the fight work? Now, I planned the fight. I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go here. We're going to go through a door, over the top, over this beam, down and around like that. And they all got it. And the set was built around the plan for the fight. So regardless of what else happened in the movie, we knew that when we got to the fight, the corridor was wide enough, the door was in the right place, the beam was in the right place, the camera couldn't do the moves and come over. There is a sneaky cut over the top beam because we didn't have a camera head that could go from there to there quick enough. Okay. So there was sort of a cut there. But generally, we shot all the fights in like one move, and they were meticulously planned.
And the guy you fight most often in the film is probably Ian Somerhalder. Yeah. Can you talk about his character? And then we have I think your first fight sequence. In the movie.
Great. Ian Somerhalder's character is sort of the person that's I wake up around a lot of the time, and he kind of has his own agenda with what he wants to do. And the good thing about the character is that he doesn't believe he's doing anything wrong, and that for me was really important, because And that for me is what Ian grabbed onto, because there's a lot of things that the character believes in that Ian believes in real life. Obviously not the villainy or anything like that. I don't want to spoil it. The guy's not necessarily, but essentially there's a lot of things in terms of saving stuff that Ian really believes in, and I think that's what drew him to the character, and he's amazing in it. He's brilliant.
Fantastic. So we have the first fight sequence between Ryan and Harkin, played by Ian Somerhalder, and this gives you an idea of the one-take fight sequences. Take it away. Who wins? We'll never know.
Well, yeah, it carries on after that as well. I mean, but yeah, after that glass smashes, that rest of that is just one shot.
Okay. So did that hurt? By the way, it looks like it did.
Not really. No, not really. I kind of, since I was a little boy, I've been throwing myself about like that. So you watch a lot of WWE wrestling. You kind of get used to taking those bumps.
How many takes was that?
That's take 6.
Okay, of
6.
Of 6.
Because that's the thing. Believe me, you are getting beat up in those things. Once you get it right, you stop. there's a very minor mistake in that one that I still notice, but once you get it like near 95%, you're like, that is it.
Okay, so you're not going down the sort of Stanley Kubrick, David Fincher route. 99 takes,
no,
100
dude,
takes.
Because the thing is about the way we shoot it, and there's no cutting. When he's hitting me here close, he has to be close. So sometimes you're getting caught. When he's getting it in the body, like you can see, that's an impact shot that he takes in slow motion. It's like we're not going full pelt, but we're hitting each other, and it's. You know, sometimes after the case, we're like, woo, boy. Because there was one take we did where he came and he swung and I felt on my lip like that. Or I caught him as well. And after I was like, dude, you're right. He's like, yeah. He's like, woo. That was a centimeter away from taking my teeth out. So like we literally were trying to make it look as real as possible in that kind of way. And so the frustrating thing is when you get right to the end and make a mistake, or 75% of the way through, and you make a mistake. I mean, we were like, if you could see us, the rushes of that, like the outtakes, we're like, fuck, damn it, right, let's go again, keep rolling. And we'd just go again because it's so frustrating. But then when you get one that's like 95%, and you sit back and you're sweating and everyone watches it back and you go, dude, there's that minor little thing there, but no one's going to notice that. Great, let's take that, let's move on. And that was what we did.
So, of course, you're both actors, so you're both probably going, not the face. This is my fortune, honestly.
Well, I think him more than me, obviously, because like he's a lot better looking than I am. And I think it's like, also one of those things with someone like him, you know, American actor, star, I didn't want to hit him in the face. You're kind of like, can you imagine the agent on the phone to you if you knocked Ian Somerhalder's tooth out or something like that? But he was great. And like I said, it's like, I needed actors that were not going to moan, that weren't going to be like, oh, I'm bruised or I'm aching or this or that, or calling their agents moaning. And Ian, you know, he was up for it. Like when I explained I was going to do the stuff in one take and that we would have to be really close, he was up for it. And for someone who's so pretty as well, like, you know, some people would think, oh, pretty boy, but he's a dude, man. And you know, he was great.
And you cast some genuine fighters as well, didn't you? And nearly paid the price.
Yeah, I mean, so with the fight scenes in the film, I didn't want to just again cast actors or even stuntmen that, you know, oh, I got to call my union or blah blah blah. So I had fighters. Like again in the corridor fight, one of the guys was a 5-time world kickboxing champion. I have other MMA fighters. I have Michael Bisping, who's a UFC fighter, and these are the guys I fought because I knew if I hit them by accident, that's their day job, right? They can take a hit, and so that's what we did. And in one of the fights, in the fight after that one, actually, in take 3, which was the last take and the take we actually used in the film, the very last punch before we cut the camera, and we had to cut the camera, was Michael Bisping swinging and catching me square in the mouth and knocking me down. Like, this is a UFC fighter, like championship contender, and he just swings like the most vicious swing. He's like that, and he comes round and he just caught me, bang, and I just went down. And then in the film, you see we literally, after he hits me, that's we have to cut to go to a different angle. Luckily, we got the whole fight, because in the slow mo, when you watch the rushes, like the footage, he goes, hits me, and then goes, oh no, medic. So literally, when he connects, we cut the camera.
So did the lights go out for you? Were you out cold? Were you okay?
No, I wasn't out cold, which I tease him about this because he's a UFC fighter, and I'm like, dude, you didn't even knock me out. So hopefully he doesn't take another chance. But no, I was definitely down, and this is when I got really scared because like my jaw was just like, whew, like in pain. And then I thought, all I was thinking about, I didn't care about them. All I thought about is if the jaw's broken and that finance guy comes to me and said, see, this is why I don't bond actor directors, I'd be like, I would never live it down. So I was hoping, and luckily it wasn't broken, but I was on like soup for 4 days because I couldn't close my back teeth. So I couldn't chew chewing gum, I couldn't eat, because actually, you go, oh, give me a chewing gum, and you put it in, and be like, and you couldn't chew it.
It just falls out.
Yeah, literally, because your teeth won't close, and you're like, that's so weird. Teeth wouldn't close, and then after about a week, it went back to normal.
Fantastic. We have one more clip now before you guys can ask Noel a question. So this one introduces another new character. It's Alexis Knapp. Can you set up that character?
Yeah, Alexis Knapp is a character that Ryan comes across along his way in a story. I won't tell you how. It's quite interesting. And you're not really sure which side she's on or what she's up to. And so this is not her introduction in the movie, but this is her reintroduction to my character.
Absolutely. Roll the clip. There you go. Now, that wasn't quite the clip you thought it was going to be.
No, slightly different. But
Slightly different.
Yeah, you know.
But that was New York. How long did you film there?
We were in New York for 2 days.
Wow.
2 days.
Okay.
Yeah. The film set there a lot more than we were there, but we were actually there for 2 days.
So 1 day flying in, unload the equipment, 1 day to film,
Well,
and then out again.
4 days if you put it like that, yeah.
Okay,
1 day fly in, 2 days shoot, and then fly out. Yeah.
So Times Square, how difficult is it to film in Times Square?
It was actually quite easy. I mean, once you get permission, we got permission under the obviously low budget and small production license thing. So you get permission, you're there properly, but it's under the agreement that you're not going to be having cranes or sticks. You can't have sticks. You can be on like Steadicam, Steadicam or handheld. And as long as you can do that, you can get the permissions, and then obviously the big films, they get the real lockdown. But people were allowed to keep walking around. Now, my thing was to make sure that continuity didn't look crazy with different people every time we changed the camera. I had about 6 extras that had like either green or yellow tops that would kind of draw your eye. And they were consistently in every shot that the people that we walked in on both sides, or, so that if suddenly you're looking at Michael's shot and then you're saying, well, how come the old man was there, then the other old man's not there? But you'd always see the girl in a yellow top, so you kind of were fooled. Fooled into thinking that it was completely done at the same time. And it was pretty easy to shoot there. We were all good until after about an hour in, Doctor Who fans started going, oh, yeah, aren't you that guy from Doctor Who? I'm like, yeah, great. And then Michael Bisping, weirdly, a UFC fighter, there was a big UFC poster in the background, and people started recognizing him. And so it started getting pretty crowded. And I think Alexis Knapp, who's actually an American actress and star in Pitch Perfect, I think she was getting quite annoyed that this weird English guy she'd never heard of and some fighter were getting all this attention. And she wasn't. And then lots of crowds started turning up. And then the film people turned up and said, guys, we thought this was a low budget, no crowd, you wouldn't be attracting attention. And we're like, yeah, sorry about that. And by this point, there was like hundreds of people. And they were like, you guys got half an hour and you got to get out. But luckily, we were on like our last shot, so we just did the last shot and we got out.
Oh my God, nice one. Okay, do you have any questions now for Noel? Please put your hands up. We have roving microphones going around. This gentleman here, and then there's a gentleman over here, and 2 gentlemen at the back.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing all this, and you're a big inspiration to me, man. Like, there's not many just in the business being actors and directors. That's a really unique position. But what I want to know is how you've alluded to it a little bit earlier. But what was the preparation for a film like this, knowing that you're going to have a starring role and you're going to be directing?
Well, the preparation was intense, and like I said, it wasn't a short prep period. So before every film, for guys that don't know, there's a period called prep. It's where you get everything locked down, all your locations, blah 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 blah. There's also pre-prep, which is an unofficial kind of prep where you start doing stuff. But I started way before that. Like, I made sure that once I read the script and once I knew we were going, you can't plan for everything, but like if you're in a room, you're in a room, right? In the script, if you're in a room, you're in a room. So you can pre-plan. Like I had bird's eye view ideas. I want the camera here. I want this here. Like the fight moves, maybe not the actual punches and kicks, but the moves of the fight, where we were going, left towards that wall, right. I planned all of that stuff out completely. Like, it was all pre-planned, and so the best thing to do is to get your first assistant director really early, and your DOP, or your DOP and main cameraman if they're 2 different people. If your operator is your DOP as well, then that person. And you guys need to get together from very early, make sure you're on the same page, you understand each other, so that if worst case scenario, if you're directing and you suddenly get struck by lightning and all you can do is remember lines and act, they know everything that's happening. They know everything that is happening 99%. Like I said, you can get an actor who suddenly goes, actually, I don't want to sit here, I want to stand at the back over there. And you might just be like, I shouldn't have hired this guy. And then you're kind of like thinking, how do we change stuff? But then you have to adapt and you have to change stuff. But generally, if that doesn't happen, or even if it does, you just have to be well prepared. So that, for me, was how I did it. And, you know, I learned that from an early age. Probably started doing that on 4-3-2-1 more so than adulthood. Adulthood, I had shot lists and blah, 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 blah. No storyboards and stuff like that. And storyboards aren't necessarily like essential, but you need to have a rough idea of what you're doing. But on Anomaly, I had everything. Pre-planned, bird's eye view, shot list, and storyboards. And DOP and first assistant who knew everything that I knew. You know, and that is the key. You can never prep enough, really. Yeah, okay, bro.
And, you know, just going back to the idea of being a director and an actor as well, how do you assess when you're in the scene as an actor? As a director, how do you assess the quality of that performance? I think I read once that George Clooney, the first time he directed himself as an actor, he would have someone who would kind of look at the performance. He would
100%, 100%. With firstly, acting, directing, when I'm in a scene, if I'm not on camera, I'm paying attention to the other actors. They're still getting the performance. They're still getting the performance they need to say their lines properly. But I'm logging everything they're doing so that at the end I can tell them. But if I'm on screen, there's always someone. There's always someone close in the team, whether it's the DOP who knows actors, or whether it's someone that you've worked with, like an acting coach. Or on Adulthood, it was Brian Tofano, who shot Quadrophenia and shot loads of films, and he shot Kidulthood and Adulthood. So he was there, and I was like, Brian, anytime you see something where I'm like, hi, my name's Sam, and I'm like posing like, you know, hair blowing in the wind, big chin, I said, you just make sure you tell me so that it you know. And he would just go, great guys, and he'd be like, no, can I have a word? And he'd pull me aside and he'd be like, I think you might want to try that one again, or whatever, or your eye was flicking, or you were twitching, or something like that, and then I would do it again. So 100% all the time. Never think that if you're acting, directing, that just because you know the material, you know enough to just do it. Always have someone that can keep you grounded and put you in your place. And if you go, man, that was brilliant, great guy, move on, they go, yeah, bro, you need to do that again. Like, do you know what I mean? You need to have that person. So make sure it's someone you trust and have them there.
Oh man, I need someone like that in my life.
I was just thinking that, dude. Like, you know.
Don't ask that question. Don't wear low shoes.
Yeah, Chris, don't ask that question, bro.
Don't do it. Yes, please. There's two gentlemen here at the back. Please, sir.
Hi. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Well, coming to see me.
Yeah. What would you say was the key knowledge that got you from acting into then actually making films? Were you trained? Was it a kind of on the job? And how did you seek the knowledge out to enable you to actually do the job?
Well, with acting is what I always wanted to do, and then in media studies with one of my co-producers over there who actually went to college with me and school, we had this teacher called Mr. Jones who weirdly started teaching us, bringing in lots of indie American films like Pulp Fiction and Go and Clerks and stuff like that, and that really got me into filmmaking. I was like, wow, I didn't know you could just say what you want and do what you want in films, and those were the films that really made me want to get into filmmaking. Sorry, what was the last bit of the question again? You said
yes, I mean, how did you go about
the
knowledge you didn't have? How did you go about getting it?
So obviously, as an actor, being on set a lot of the time, like I said earlier, I watched a lot and did stuff like that. And Chris made reference to earlier when I was first starting to write properly, because I always wrote. I went and bought like a bunch of screenplays and just sat down in my room and dissected them and learned about beats and stuff like that. And it doesn't mean I always get it right. Like, still get it wrong, you know, sometimes, because sometimes you just want to write something different. But there are kind of rules. But with directing, I would say, apart from the experience of acting and being on set, every single film that I watch, every single DVD or Blu-ray that I buy, I watch every single feature on that disc. Like, I don't just watch the film. Like, I'll watch a film 4 times if they have 4 commentaries. I'll watch the director's commentary, the composer's commentary, the cast commentary. I'll watch the making of. I'll watch every single thing on all those films. And sometimes it means a film takes you a week as opposed to, I've watched 2 hours of this. But you'll be surprised what you learn in those things, because they really tell you how They do shots. They really tell you how they've achieved things for the budget, and it's a real. I can't. It's almost as good as sitting in any university and having someone lecture you. You're watching actual filmmakers doing commentaries and say, guys, how we achieved this is actually what we did was we had something on a roof on a rope and we dropped that. You're like, wow, okay. I thought it was a lot more technical than that, but you can learn so much. I recently watched The Raid 2, again with my co-producer, and we came out of the screening and everyone was talking about the fights, blah, 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 and we found Gareth because Gareth was there. And everyone was saying, fights. And I waited, and I said, dude, I wanted to ask you something. He was like, the fights? I said, no. There's one shot you did when you're on the motorbike, and you kind of went from one car to the other, into the car, around the back, came out the other side. And I said, how did you do that shot? Because that's all I'm concerned about. I don't care about the fights. I've seen fights all the time. And he said, all right, I tell you. And he told me that he even had a cameraman dressed up as a car seat, like in disguise. I'm not even lying. He said one of the camera guys was dressed up like a car seat, and in position, and they moved the camera across and it went through, and you couldn't tell because he was camouflaged, and he grabs it and puts it through. And I was like, okay, and that's all I was concerned about because it was such an amazing shot. And it's not even in a particularly memorable sequence. It's in like a motorbike chase, but it's just one moment when I was like, but you know, watching stuff like that and learning things like that is really how you get the knowledge if you don't have the practical experience of being an actor as well. And so that plus being an actor and watching directors, I guess, is where kind of I got my knowledge. And I'm still learning. I by no means think I'm perfect. Even in that last clip, there's one cut in there that really doesn't work, and I had to disguise it with a bit of VFX, and that was just because we just couldn't get the last bit of footage we needed. So there's one little sneaky cut in that last run-in section in New York there, and if I hadn't put a bit of VFX on there, it would be so apparent. And anyone who's paying attention will still see it. But so I'm still learning too, you know. And I feel like you only learn by trial and error. You improve each time, you know. And you know, if people look at this compared to previous films, they'll see the development, and hopefully it can only get better. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please. There's a gentleman right beside you.
Hi.
Hello.
I don't know if I need a mic. My voice is really strong. Yeah. Anyway.
Ladies and gentlemen, Barry White. Thank you.
I wanted to find out with Anomaly, what did you find most hard about it, and how did you get over it?
The most difficult thing with Anomaly was obviously stretching the budget to the place where, I mean, because if you look at that, I'm not going to tell you the budget, but if I told you the budget, you would not believe the budget we achieved, what we achieved with that budget. And so that was the hardest thing, making sure we knew where to put the money, making sure we knew where the VFX spend was going to be, making sure we knew the points where we really could splash out and the points where we had to hold back. And so that was a real learning experience and a real difficult thing, but something that again is invaluable. Now I know how to make a film at that level look like that for that level, then I can do it. So if I had doubled the budget, then whew, you know what I mean? But it's not as much as people think it is.
Okay, we got time for a couple more. There's a guy here, please.
Hi, Noel.
Hello.
You said in one of your interviews that for every idea which succeeds, you have 20 which fail.
Yeah.
How do you pick yourself up and keep going after those setbacks?
Well, firstly, you don't have a choice. I've been doing this so long now that I'm not sure I can do anything else. But it really comes down to work rate and determination. I mean, and you're right. Every script that gets made, every film that our company gets made, there's probably 10 or 15 that haven't been made. So every script I write that gets made, there's 5, 6, 7 that just sitting on my laptop. Some of them weirdly come back. Like the time might not be right, or you haven't got the right actor, or it just was before its time, or it was a period piece, but the period was too near. So they didn't want to make it. And then all of a sudden, 5 years later, they go, actually, we're going to start making films like that. And you're like, oh, I got a new one. You know? but the word you're going to hear most in this job is no. That's all you're going to get. As an actor, as a writer, director, the word you'll hear the most is no. If you can handle rejection and you can get up from that, then... and you can put the work in, then that's all you need. There's no right or wrong answer. The real point is that you have to be able to deal with rejection. If you can't, then you need to quit now, because that's what you're going to hear the most. But then, of course, when you get one, there's nothing better than getting one. But it is literally, it's not a how you pick yourself up. It's just pick yourself up and keep going. Because when you start thinking about, man, you other people are just doing it, so you just have to do it.
Cool.
Cheers, man.
You're not going to quit, are you?
No.
Keep
No.
going.
No, don't
Absolutely
quit,
not.
man. Keep going.
Fight a good fight. There's a gentleman over here. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, first off, I think some of the clips look really awesome, and I'm into acting myself, and I was just wanted to ask you, as an actor and director, what advice would you give to like other young actors out there that want to also go into different parts of filmmaking?
Probably the same advice that I just gave this gentleman over here. Like, the profession is very difficult. It's so difficult, and it's very competitive. And the word you're going to hear the most is no. That is what you're going to hear 90%. Even now, like, if I audition for stuff, you maybe get 1 out of every 5 to 10, and that's because the level I'm at is different now. When I first started, I was at that ratio, but I was going for whatever sorts of jobs, and then I started getting to the bigger leagues. But then with the bigger leads, they get a film come out immediately, it's going to Idris or Chewie or someone like that. And if none of them are doing it, then it starts filtering down. There's a bunch of American actors, like, so I'm still auditioning for stuff, and you don't get, like, people say to me, man, you got Star Trek, how cool is it, man? That's amazing. That's one. If I told you the ones I've been for, if I told you the ones I didn't get, that's why I would never get excited by it, because it's like, well, I'm owed one. The amount that I was owed one, the amount that I went for. So do you know what I mean? The same advice is just you have to keep going, and you have to understand the work rate you're going to put in. Some people think they can handle it, and they cannot handle it. It's an amazing work rate that you have to dedicate yourself to, and it means sacrifices. But if you're willing to do that and you can do it, then you'll be fine.
Okay, we got time for one last question from this gentleman here. Thank you.
sir.
Hi, Noel.
Hello.
One of my favourite films is Kidulthood, and I was just wondering how a film like that came about, because it's quite an unusual film.
Yeah, Kidulthood was, so I grew up in that area, and I went to school in that area and college in that area, and it was just based, Kidulthood was just based on me and my friends. And so I started acting, and I kept hearing the word no a lot, like I said, and I kept reading stuff, and I was like, we talked about this the other day. Finally I got an agent because I had a few things, and I'd read a job and they go, we've got a great part for you, darling. Just go have a look at Bank Robber number 2. And I'd be like, whoa, why am I Bank Robber number 2? There's a guy called No, you have to look at Bank Robber number 2. Oh, okay, so I'd look at it. Then a week later, we have a wonderful part coming for you, darling. It's Thief 3. And I said, whoa, hold on a second, why am I going to be Thief 3? Like, this is ridiculous. And I said, don't worry about it, so I'd go do that. Then, darling, we have a wonderful part from you. This time your character has lines and everything. He's got a name. What's his name? Jim. Great. Well, Jim's first line is, open the safe, Bob. And I was like, no, this can't work. So I said, okay, this is not acceptable. So I thought, but I was always taught by my mother, don't talk about somebody's job unless you tried it. So not only was I fed up with these characters, I was reading these scripts. I was like, this script is a piece of beep. You know how I beat myself there, but this script is a piece of, like, this is shit, right, basically. So, but I thought, actually, how can I say that unless I've tried writing? So then we come back to the screenplay thing, where I bought a bunch of screenplays and I started writing. I wrote a couple of scripts. The first one was called Remembering Jesse, which is still on my laptop. The second one was called Society, which is still on my laptop. The third one was called The Knot, which we actually made years later, was made a couple of years ago. And the fourth one was called Kidulthood. And the word kidulthood came from, I was in a thing called Metrosexuality, and Ricky Beadle Blair once said, I'm a 48-year-old kiddo. And I was like, man, I love that. And so I took the word kidulthood, and it was just based on me and my friends in West London, and then it was based on what was happening with kids now. And I just sat down on my arse and I wrote it, because I thought that I'd learned enough from screenplays to try. Never thought the film would get made. It was just, and then I showed it to a couple of people in, like, this is about the year 2000. And I worked with a guy called Ray Panthaki at a play at the Royal Court, and I showed it to him, and he said, I know a director that might like this. He sent it to the director, Hoods, who loved it, and he said, we're going to make it. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, bro. Like, yeah, knock yourself out. And we started trying to get it done, and then from 2000 to 2003, it was knocking on every door. Everyone in the industry said no, nobody wanted to do it. And then Damien Jones and George Isaac, these producers, sort of scribbled together some kind of independent finance. Then in 2003, so 3 years after I wrote it, 2003, we cast the movie. And then we were going to film, and it was all looking great, and then the whole thing collapsed, and it was like never going to happen. And then we found a new bit of finance. So in 2004, now 4 years after it was initially written, we shot the movie independently. Like they cobbled together the finance. They shot the movie independently, and we were like, "Woo!" We made a film called Kid Out Hood that no one's ever going to watch, and we were right, because nobody wanted to put the film out. So the film then sat on a shelf from 2004 to 2006 while nobody wanted to put the film out because kids didn't speak like that and kids didn't behave like that. And then this little distributor who had only done like weird DVDs like Snoop Dogg's Pornos decided, I'm telling you, they said, oh, we'll put it out. And then in March 2006, 6 years after it was written, the film came out. And then we know what happened after that. That is how that film happened.
Amazing. You've hinted a couple of times, both here and up in Edinburgh, that you may have another Hood movie in you. Do you? Any plans? Any concrete plans?
No, there's no concrete plans at all. I mean, I feel like as a person now, like doing those movies, I love those movies. I really love them. And, you know, as a person now who's older, since I did those, I've got 2 children now. I have 2 children. I didn't have children when I did those films. So I was like, yeah, lad, what are you saying, fam? I'm going to do this. Blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean? Now I've got kids. I'm older. I don't speak like that. Well, to be honest, I never spoke like that in real life. But, you know, I'm older, and I just like, I started thinking in my head, what would the characters be doing now? Because I couldn't even believe I would have children. I've got 2 little boys, and I think now, where would those characters be? So there's definitely something that's sort of bubbling in my head at the minute. There's no concrete plans. Don't be getting excited and be like, yeah, no free blood, you get me? Like, none of that. It's just, there's no plans, but I'm starting to sort of think 10 years on, because 2006, so in 2016, that's 10 years.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to think, what would they be doing? That's what I'm starting to think. So, yeah, it's bubbling.
Watch this space.
Watch
On
this
that
space.
note, lovely note on which to end. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you, of course.
Thank
Noel
you,
Clarke.
everyone. Thank you very much. Make films that kind of have ambition and show that you can do more than you can achieve more than people will tell you can. And for me, that was part of the appeal of this film, because it shouldn't, that you saw in the trailer really should not be possible for the amount of money that we had to make the movie. But when you kind of force someone to make films at a low budget, eventually they become proficient at it, you know. And so having to make stuff like Kidulthood and Adulthood at lower budgets, we learn how to make films at lower budgets. And I don't need to spend 200 million, you know, because we can make a film that is, you know, is 200 times less the cost, but not 200 times less the quality. And that's the point.
So it's interesting, after Kidulthood, which you wrote, and Adulthood, which you wrote and directed, it's been interesting that you've really seemed to have made a purposeful leap into commercial British filmmaking. Do you think there's enough commercial British filmmaking in this country these days, and how difficult is it to make commercial movies here?
I don't think there's enough commercial British filmmaking, and it is very, very difficult to make. Moving away from those films, it was a conscious choice, not because I don't love them, and not because I wouldn't necessarily be annoyed about that. And so I spoke to Simon, and he said, look, I've got a whole bunch of other ideas, and he started pitching me his ideas, and they were all right. And then he said, I've got this idea called the Anomaly, and he told me the first segment, and I said, okay, I want that one. I said, I want that one. He said, well, I'm kind of only halfway. I said, no, I don't care. I like the sound of it. I want that one. in the hope that he would deliver what I liked, and he did.
So did he give you the script in 9-minute, 47-second long chunks? Every now and again, just a new bit, and then a new bit?
It took him that long to write it, but in weeks, though, in weeks. No, but yeah, he sent it, and I just really liked it, because I really felt that it was a high concept, but something you could do. It was contained, so you could do it for a lower budget, which, you know, over here, I don't get like 200 million and all sorts of nonsense things. It was probably, this film probably cost less than the catering budget on some of those other big films, you know.
Like Star Trek Into Darkness, for example.
Yeah,
maybe.
Which I also didn't write.
So you hear this pitch. What was it about? Was it the idea of these chunks of 9-minute, 47 seconds? Was it a sci-fi twist? Was it something that you could play as well?
It was more about the sci-fi twist, or on something that we could do out of the UK but had ambition. You know, I always try to...
Welcome to the director and star of The Anomaly, Noel Clarke.
Hi guys, girls. Hi.
So Noel, welcome. What is the anomaly? Let's start with a nice and easy one, because this movie is a noodle baker. It's a melon twister.
Yeah.
So, how can you explain it in one or two sentences quite easily?
Well, as you saw from the the trailer explains it first and foremost. But as you saw, the Anomaly is a film about an ex-soldier who wakes up in the back of the van and is more involved than he realizes, and then has 9 minutes 47 seconds to figure out what's going on. And the film is then told in those 9-minute 47-second segments.
Okay. So when did it first hit your desk? Because you didn't write this.
No, it hit my desk about 2 years ago. A writer called Simon Lewis that I had met had written a really good script called Tiger House, which I wanted to option, which is now being made by another director called Tom Daly. And I tried to option Tiger House, and just when we were in the middle of the option, a big production company came in, swooped in and took it away. And I was really like, obviously it had been a while. 4321 was a great experience making the film, and then a not so great experience with some of the people, and not the actors, some of the people behind the scenes that I ended up working with. And so it kind of was, I was kind of like, well, I just need to sort of recover from that. And then after doing quite a few acting jobs and writing a few things like Fast Girls and Stories 24 and various other things, and being in films like Centurion and Star Trek, I thought, actually I need to make sure that I get back in the directing chair, because that's what I love as well, and that's what I want to do. And I have like I know what the next 5 things I want to do are. Whether they will happen or not is a different story, because the industry is the industry. But of the next 5 things I want to do, there's only one that I'm in, and the other 4 I fell in love with the scripts, and I want to direct those as well.
But you are in this. You're the lead
In
role
this one, yeah.
In this one, how does Noel Clarke, the actor, get a role from Noel Clarke, the director? Do you have to audition for yourself? How do you do it?
Yeah, I'm kind of like, how's this? That was shit, but you can still do the job. I'll hire you anyway.
What's your fee?
Mainly because you sleep with me. Well, thank you. Necessarily do it again. It was because, having done 2 of those, it was firstly to make sure that I wasn't being stuck in a box of like he does that, and secondly to make sure that the people that the films represented weren't necessarily being represented in a way that actually wasn't fair. Like, the films were, in my opinion, positive messages within a negative environment. The first film was saying, if you behave this way, you can die. So you need to not behave this way. That's the first film. Yeah. The second film was saying, as he did at the end of the film, is you can walk away from that life. You don't have to, and at the end, Sam walks away. And so many people say, why did he walk away, bruv? He should have took him out. I'm like, no, he walked away because that's the message. You can walk away from the bad things and you can start again. But at the same time, people that didn't see the message in those films saw them as negative movies, and thus I didn't think doing a third one at the time would have been good for anyone.
Absolutely. But this is your 3rd film as director. You see, you did Adulthood in 4321. It's been, 3-4 years now since that movie?
Yeah.
So were you looking purposefully to get back on the directing horse, so to speak?
Yeah, 100%. I was looking for something new to direct. I felt